We're joined now by Sam Zhao from the U.S. state of Colorado. He's the executive director of the Center for China-U.S. Cooperation at the University of Denver. Sam, just want to get your initial take on this speech.
This is a very high level of attacks on China. I've been in the U.S. for over 33 years. I've never seen this type of attacks from a very high level of U.S. officials. Here is the Vice President of the United States. Looks like he is talking on all fronts of U.S.-China relations and gave very negative assessments on all fronts. People have paid attention to the Mandarin election. Here, in fact, he talked about China's domestic developments, attacked U.S. engagement in the last several decades, and China's global engagements, and also the bilateral relationship between China and the U.S.
So let me ask you this: why now? Why do you think he's on the offensive like this?
I think this has been developed for quite a while. The U.S.-China relationship has come to a very low point. Have not seen for many years, if not many decades. In fact, since the end of the 2008-2009, the relationship has come to south, come down, and the last election has a very good example. And those politicians from all spectrums, left and right, have all treated China as a rival. So in that context, President Trump has come to office and promised that he would take very tough positions on China, mostly here on the economic and trade fronts. He has, in fact, fulfilled his promises, launched the trade war with China, and also labeled China as the strategic rival, competitor, and also revisionist power. So this speech, I think, carried this type of foreign policy to a further step, put a whole government and a whole society level to see China as a threat, penetration into American society and threatening Americans' vital national interests, and not only a rival, almost an enemy of the United States.
Well, Sam, one of the points that Wang Guan made in his story, is in his speech, he's complaining about China convincing 3 Latin American nations for recognizing Beijing. And as Wang Guan pointed out, that's something the United States did back in the 1970s. Why shouldn't these countries have the freedom to do the same thing as the U.S. and engage Beijing and do business with Beijing? It's a lucrative market.
Exactly. That's very natural for these countries to shift to China. In fact, during the Ma Ying-jeou administration several years ago, quite a few Latin American countries and African countries, they tried to shift to China. China held that down because they wanted to work with Ma Ying-jeou to eventually realize their strategic objectives. Since Tsai Ing-wen came to office, she has refused to recognize the so-called 1992 consensus and refused to accept the One China principle with a different interpretation. So China has launched those kind of diplomatic attacks, try to lure those countries to China. And this would be a natural development, but Trump tried to now treat China as a rival and a competitor. So he will use all those events, all excuses to attack China. And this is one of the issues he could use. But I don't think he could go very far on this, as even Pence, Vice President Pence recognized. U.S. has to preserve One China principle, which has a very important political foundation for the relationship. If that foundation is broken, this relationship will be in big trouble. So those small countries could be issues, but not that big issue.
Sam, let me ask you about this Iowa insert that he also talked about in the newspaper there. He said they're meddling in the election, but some of the articles there were stories about soybean imports. One had a quote from Davy Stevens of the American Soybean Association saying, quote, "As the largest importer of U.S. soybeans, China is a vital and robust market we cannot afford to lose." And Reuters is reporting that Brazil will surpass the United States as the largest producer of soybeans this year. First time in history. That's not meddling, that's just providing facts, isn't it?
Yes, it's providing facts, but the problem here for the Americans, I mean, those politicians, this is from the Chinese government. They purchase these pages and try to push forward their views on those issues. I think in my observation on this year's situation, the issue here, or the key word here is the reciprocity. And the Chinese government could put those inserts into American newspapers, but U.S. could not put those inserts in the Chinese newspapers. So that's, I think, Vice President Pence also mentioned this type of reciprocity, this kind of fair field of competition. And so it's not a matter of if those are facts or if it's written by some credible people. This is the issues that express the Chinese government view. I think that's the issue here, and also reciprocity does not exist.